Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Writing Gals. Thank you for staying up late with us. Tonight, we will be discussing how to write during adversity, and we'll be discussing either burnout or adversity just in general, and a lot of us are experiencing a lot of that right now, so we thought this was a really great topic for current events. But first, we're going to discuss what we're doing. So let's start with Judy. What are you doing? What have you been up to lately?
So I am still trying to finish my book, Her Football Star X, and I've made it to just a little over 40,000 words finally. And I think they might have a happily ever after, but it's been a little iffy. So yeah, it's a fun one. But I think it'll turn out well, and some fun things are in store finally. There's been some angst and drama, but it's going to be fun for a little bit before I really drop a bomb. So that'll be fun.
Torture.
But yeah, yes, I'm really torturing them in this one. Nice. It'll be great. You know, the ending will be even sweet when they get there. So, but yeah, that's what I've been doing, and trying to manage all of my emails and text messages from the schools coming in, and it's exciting.
Oh yeah, really exciting.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, Anne-Marie, what have you been up to?
Well, I just finished my April release book, so that one was fun. It took me an extra 15,000 words over what I normally write to finish it, but it's done and at the editor, thank goodness.
Yay.
And I'm a couple chapters away from finishing my co-written book with Lucy McConnell. So I'm going to knock that one off my list. And then I have 2 more coming right after that. So I'll be diving into those books. One is a co-written book with Maggie Dallin, and the other one is just a pre-order book. And we haven't been gone to forced homeschooling yet. It's our spring break next week. And so they just considered this week in addition to that spring break. So we just got a call from the superintendent, though, saying on the 30th, they're going to start school online. So I'm really grateful I have my husband here, because his business has slowed way down because he's dependent on the University of Minnesota, and the University of Minnesota is closed. So
yeah, he
will be taking on the teaching of the children thing. But we were talking about this earlier where I was like, my kids are all in elementary school. Like,
yeah,
they didn't finish out this school year. I'm not going to be brokenhearted about it. And I doubt it's going to affect them forever. So, yeah, so just trying to figure out a new normal, I think, for the foreseeable future, for however long this is going to last.
Yes. All right, Michelle, what have you been doing?
I just released my new romantic comedy, A Man Worth Shaving For. And it's been a lot of fun to see the response that I'm getting with that new category for me. And it's made me really excited because so many of my fans have really, really enjoyed the new playful, funny, sort of, I think, a little bit extra romantic way of writing. But it's also putting a lot of pressure on me to do it again. So I am now working on the sequel to that book and trying also to write several other books at the same time. So I don't know. And in the middle of all this stuff, it's a lot, isn't it?
It is.
So sometimes it's easier to just go check on my new book and see if I've gotten any new reviews or what my rank is, and sort of put off working on my actual writing. I've always struggled to write during a launch anyway, but I'm trying to pull out of that and get busy again. So we'll probably talk about that a lot more later in the show.
Yes. Fantastic. Well, I love this book that you just launched. It's awesome. And the title is so perfect. Everybody comments on it when I post about your book, how awesome that title is. So it's doing really good. I've been working on another adult rom-com as well. I am writing one called Oh, what's the name of it? Blank.
Or inconvenient something.
Marriage. That's it. Marriage of anything but convenience. That's it.
Something like that. I was way off. but I had,
it's a really great book. Can't
really
even
is.
remember the title, but I'm having a ton of fun with it. My whole goal is to make people laugh every chapter. So I'm trying really hard to put a lot of fun, a lot of lightheartedness in it, but there's also some serious stuff in it too. So trying really hard to make it a good book for everybody, and hopefully I can continue to write during all this craziness going on. And that leads us right into what we're going to be talking about, which is writing during adversity. I'm just going to jump right into the questions that we've had on our, on our Facebook page. So the first question we got, Sally asked, how do you overcome the fear that your manuscript isn't good enough? Sometimes I'm worried that once this draft is done, there will be so much more work, I'll be too overwhelmed to finish. The more I learn, the more I realize I have to learn.
For me, a lot of it is I just have to focus on what I'm doing in it right now. Like I do a lot of times, just like even right now in my book, I'm like, this is horrible. This is not good. But I have to remind myself that I can revise and I can make it better, and I can get input from other people as well to help me make it better. And me, other people can help give ideas if they read through it. And I can revise and fix if I need to. And then I also remind myself nothing will ever be perfect. Art is not meant to be perfect, and you just make it the best you can and let it go. So.
Very true.
I think it's an important skill to learn to enjoy editing. Like not just remind yourself that you can edit, but to learn to look forward to it. And I'm not talking about like finding typos and stuff like that, but to me, it's anything creative that I do, any of my other hobbies, the actual fun part where the project comes to shape is not the bulk of the work. Like if I'm sewing something, actually sewing is one of the least, time-consuming parts of it. There's the pattern, cutting out the pieces and laying everything out and pinning it. And I mean, it just, ironing, so much ironing. But, for me, editing is the part of the process that everything actually starts to take shape into the final product. And that's where you can really hone in on the details, and when you can really infuse it with voice and personality and write your beautiful prose. And so, just learn to make your editing process fun and see it as something to look forward to. And that will take some of the pressure off of the rough draft. I mean, everybody says like not to worry about your rough draft, but I think the magic comes into it when you learn how creative editing is. We just don't think of editing as being creative, but I think it's a very creative part of the process and can be a lot of fun. Also, people put too much pressure on their first book or their second book. Don't let it stall you out, because yes, it's a learning process and it's your first step. And so don't spend so much time and energy over trying to perfect that first book that you wear yourself out and lose the joy of writing. You're going to need to, at some point find a way to let that one go and move on to your next one, because you're going to get better. And, those of us who've written for a long time now, we can see that progress from our first book and our second book. And so it's, something you can look to people who've been there before and just say, just keep going, just keep going.
Mm-hmm. Good advice.
I just had this with my current work in progress. And I think the longer your books are, the harder it is to remember what you put in your book. So when you're writing, chapter 20, a lot of times my questioning in my mind is, did I set it up enough so that what I'm writing in chapter 20 is appropriate and makes sense? And so, you know, taking time to stop and read over what you've written to gain that confidence. But also realizing that you can't compare yourself now to you as a writer in 5 years. And I think that's what a lot of us do. We think, well, this should be better. I should be better at writing this. And you have to, sometimes you just have to be like, me writing 3, 4, 5 years, as long as I have, this is as good as I can write, and I will only get better from here. And then I think the other thing is to remembering that your reader is experiencing your book for the first time, but you have already experienced your book. You've already experienced those moments between the characters that you didn't know were going to be there or weren't in your mind or weren't what you played out. So to you, you're like, well, this is boring and it should be better. But to your reader, it can be really exciting for them because that's not what they expected. So I think putting yourself in the place of a reader instead of the author is very different. And so that's why they say, you know, if you get to the point where you're just moving commas around, then you're done. You need to put that book out in the world. You need to start something new. And I would suggest probably before that, if you're tweaking a sentence in the way it's structured, maybe then just give it to an editor and let them fix it. And then you start on the next book.
But that's how I worked on my first 2 books, you know, fixing sentences here and there.
But I think like starting something fresh and starting something new is what's really going to help you be a better writer. And then just letting your book go out there. And I'm always like, I'm going to get the worst reviews on this book. People are going to hate it because I hate this book. But that never actually happens.
Yes, I think a lot of times what I perceive as my story is not what other people see, especially if I'm at a certain point in the book. And it's always around between 30 and 40,000 words. That's always when I think my book just completely sucks and I hate it and I don't want to keep going with it. But I have to push through that and get past it, and then it looks a lot better. So getting outside opinions and having other people go, no, this doesn't suck, really helps me figure out, or they'll come back and say, this doesn't suck, but there's a problem here or the problem there. And that helps me see what I need to do to fix it.
Yeah, I think that I see so many authors who have been editing of the same book for 5 years over and over and over and over and over again. And sometimes they send it to this agent and this editor and this editor, or this critique person. And what happens is you can edit it to death, for one thing. But the end of her question was, the more I learn, the more I realize I have to learn. And to me, that is when sometimes we educate ourselves too much, and we almost educate ourselves out of the ability to just tell a story. Because most readers don't care to see the mechanics that we feel like we have to put in there, right? They don't care about our foreshadowing. They don't care about all this and this and this and that as much as they care about being immersed in a story. All those things matter, and hopefully over time you'll grow your skills and be able to infuse more of that. That's my word for the night, infuse more and more and more into your story, all these wonderful things you're learning about. But if with your first book, when you're trying to finish and trying to get it out there, I promise you, just telling your story in a way that is compelling and gives people a good experience is going to do a lot more for your reader than you could really imagine. So let go of all the pressure that you're putting on yourself by learning more about the craft, and just realize that learning to apply that and learning to do that is a process over time. But yeah,
I totally agree with that. And sometimes our first book isn't meant to be published. So if this is your first book and your learning book, then use it as your learning book. And after you're done with it, set it aside and say, that was a great learning experience. Now I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to even be better. And we do. Every book we make, we improve, and we're better and better. So keep on going with it. Don't stop. All right. Next question. Andrea asks, what are the hot tropes and topics in today's world? Should we incorporate the events going on in the world into our writing, or just ignore it and keep the status quo, writing about sweet and happy lives?
Right now, if you look at the top 100 books on Amazon, it is all kids book, kids education, kids learning, how to be a homeschool mom and how to do this. And I mean, that's obviously what's on top of everybody's mind and what everybody needs. So I unless those are things that you already write and already do, you know, don't go jumping after all the trend stuff right now. I think in general, everything is going to be this big sort of, I don't know, like a cement machine just turning and turning and turning. And we don't know where it's going to stop or what things are going to look like when it's over with. And we just kind of have to keep doing what we're good at right now and what we care about. And there's going to be, I think there's going to be a huge mix. People are going to want stories about the way things have always been and the things that bring them comfort and security and make them feel good and let them escape from the craziness right now. But at the same time, I can't help but wonder how things are going to shake out at the end of this. We don't know. I mean, this is something that is active and happening. And at the end, there may be a completely different way that all stories will be written because of what has happened. I mean, you know, like going forward, how do you not mention this if the United States and the world in general, wherever you live, has just had to shut down and everybody stay away from each other for weeks and months on end? I mean, how do you not incorporate that into your story from then on? So I don't know. We're all just going to have to wait and see what reality looks like.
Yep, I totally agree. I would say this, the tropes that were popular right before this hit are still going to be popular after things settle down. So I wouldn't jump ship. And if you're writing sweet romance, don't like, oh, I need to write post-apocalyptic now because that's what's hot. Don't. Just keep going with what you're doing because if it was selling before, it'll go back to sell again.
Yeah, like my tastes haven't changed. I still like the same books that I liked last week. So
yeah.
Escape is important.
Yes. All right. Next question. We have Sally asking, I am having a hard time shutting out my anxiety in order to write. How do you suggest people cope with that?
Meditate.
That's a good idea.
That's helpful.
I watch K-dramas.
Me too.
I would probably say turn off the news, stay off of Facebook. Not a lot's going to change if you say I'm going to check the internet or check the news in the morning for 30 minutes and then at night for 30 minutes. But when you're constantly bombarded over and over and over again with the stuff, I would just stay away. And then
Oh, go ahead.
I was saying, just realize that this does have an end. This will have an end date. Who knows when it's going to be, but it will be an end date. And if anything, for me, it just makes me so grateful that my job requires me to social distance and stay home. And I can still, like, I don't feel, besides my kids being home, I don't feel like anything has changed in my schedule. I get up, I eat, or maybe not, and I sit and I write, and then I watch Korean dramas, and I work out in my house, and then I go to bed. And like my schedule has, besides like not as much going out to eat, you can still go through a drive-through, but my schedule hasn't changed a whole lot. So just maybe seeing the positives in the things that you have and the ability you have. And yeah, that's what's helped me.
So for me, my situation has changed pretty dramatically because I did have all day to myself, and now I've got all 4 kids home. But not only are they home, but I am managing their education, and I've got kids doing schoolwork between kindergarten and 9th grade, and I'm having to help and keep up with all of them. Plus, my husband is working from home at the kitchen table. And he's got a very stressful job because he's trying to get Charmin toilet paper into Walmart. That's his job, is keeping that in stock. So you can imagine what his life has been like and will continue to be like for some time. So trying to manage my kids and keeping things quiet and calm and as stress-free as possible, there's just no way for me to just write during the day like I used to. And by the end of the day, when things, my husband's done with his work and we were trying to get to where I could work in the evenings, I am exhausted and I can't work. And the only thing that has been working for me is getting up early in the morning at like 5 or 5:30 in the morning, because if I can wake up and I told my husband, I said, we're letting the kids sleep in. They can do their homework later into the morning. That way I have some quiet time in the morning that I can work before all of these things start piling on to me that do cause the stress and anxiety. When my house is quiet, I don't get up and I don't look at the news and I don't look at Facebook and I don't look at all these other things that will cause that anxiety. And I just can focus in the quiet and get some work done. And that's literally the only time I've been able to get anything done. But I have to sacrifice to do that, right? So it's not easy to get up that early. You just got to figure out what will work for you. And we have probably, there are as many different situations as we have people who will see this podcast, and everybody's just going to have to figure out where the eye in their storm is, where that center of calm can be so that they can write. Maybe you have to make it happen somehow.
Yeah. And you might also just need to lower your expectations as well. Just accept that it's probably not going to be, you might not be as productive as you once were. That's what I'm probably not going to finish my book by the end of the month like I had hoped. So I just have to do my best and just focus on it as much as I can and be okay with it.
Yeah, that's good advice. I am experiencing some anxiety with this situation as well. And my life actually hasn't really changed that much because I'm home all day like I always was. And I have 2 kids that are homeschooled, so their lives didn't change any. They do online homeschool, and I don't, I'm not involved with it a whole lot, just monitoring it. And so I'm finding it harder to write just because of all the stuff going on. And I'm constantly checking Facebook and constantly watching this and reading this article and trying to be informed and all this stuff. And I think Amy's suggestion of just unplugging for a little bit, don't check it so much, and get your mind off of it is a really good suggestion. And for me, getting into my story and finding out what is exciting about my story, what do I want to write next? What are those candy bar scenes that I can't wait to get to? Maybe I'll skip ahead a little bit and write a candy bar scene so I can feel satisfaction with something that I really wanted to write. And that is helping me motivate me to write. All right, next question. Tori says, I was going to ask a question here about that topic, so this is perfect. I'm not sure how to word it. Guess I'm just not sure if I should try to figure out some way to power through when I feel so down and crummy, or if that is just a waste of time that will produce terrible writing, and maybe I should just take a break until I'm in a better mind frame. But I also know terrible writing can always be edited later too. So she talked a little bit about some of the stress she's going through. So how do you guys suggest she just powers through and edit later, or take a break?
Just depends.
Yeah, powering through is sometimes just about discipline and motivation, and being excited about your writing again. I mean, I think that's the thing, is like writing has to fill you up and make you feel better. And if it's not, then you probably have some homework to do. Powering through can be dangerous. So it caused me to go through some, difficult burnout at the end of 2019 that took me a long time to get through. And you don't even realize that it's happening. And you don't get burned out because you're writing a novel a month. Burnout can happen at different places and in different ways for all of us. And it can, for me, it had more to do with what was going on in my personal life and the fact that I kept pushing my writing through all of that difficult stuff instead of saying, okay, I need to slow down a little bit because I have all this other stuff going on. So I would say that you need to be very careful with your mental health. And you need to evaluate yourself. And how do I feel about writing? Am I excited to write? Do I want to write? when I write, do I feel energized? Do I feel positive and excited? Does it refresh me? Or is it something that drains me and that I dread and don't want to get back to? So you just need to really sit down and analyze all of these things and pay attention to different times of day that you write or different situations, and see if you can create an atmosphere or a time where you can, enjoy that writing process again. And look at what you're writing. Maybe it's because part of my problem is I pushed myself to finish or almost finish a specific series. And I've learned that for me, I need to be able to move around and write in different genres to keep myself interested. So, yeah, I also suggest watching Becca Syme's Quick Cast on YouTube, because she has a whole series about burnout, and it's great. It helped me a lot. It helps to recognize all the different stages of burnout, so you can figure out where you are in the process and if you are. And then she has other episodes about recovery. So, and I think it's good to know, even if you're not going through burnout, just so that you can keep yourself from getting there.
I agree. And for myself, if I don't feel motivated to write, I kind of have this little self-test to figure out if I need a break or if I can power through. And I'll just go and I will write for a certain amount of time, 20, 30 minutes. And if it's pulling teeth and it feels terrible and awful and horrible and I'm not getting anywhere and I'm not excited about it, then I will take a break and I will say, all right, I need to binge watch something on Netflix. I need to feed the well so that my creativity can be pumped up and I can get that urge to write again. So that's my own process, is I try to write, and if it's just not coming, I go take a break. This kind of goes right into the next question. Tammy asks if we take a break while we're sick, or do we try to write while we're sick? And for me, when I'm sick, I just cannot write. I've tried and I just can't do it when I'm feeling awful. So I feed that well while I'm sick. I read and I watch TV, and I make sure that I'm feeding it with things that will inspire me to write when I get better.
Yeah, same here. Even when I was like pregnant, I only like messed up my books. So, and then after that, like the next 9 months, so when you're not at your peak performance, sometimes it's okay not to write.
Yes, I agree.
I think also writing, so I have been writing full time for 2.5 years now, and I go through this funk every February. And I just know that if I'm having a hard time, I hate the month of February. It's an awful month, especially when you live in the northern states. It's cold, it's dreary, it's awful. There's no sunshine. And I know I'm going to struggle during that time. But I have had experience where I have struggled with a book during that time, and I continued to write in it, and it came out well. So I think learning yourself is important, to know that, like, I can, why am I struggling at this point? Sometimes for me, I struggle in certain portions of the book. Like Victorine said, 30 to 40,000 words, she's pulling teeth. And I know I'm like that too. I think if you're struggling, take a day or two and like Victorine said, fill your well. But I also think if you wait too long, sometimes it's even harder to get back into it. And I have a personality where I have this like drive, like I have to finish it. Like I'm not like somebody who can just be like, it's okay, I'll just put it aside. So then what I do is I just significantly shrink my word count. Today, I just need to get 1,000 words done, and I get 1,000 words tomorrow. And by the end of the week, if I write 1,000 words every day, I will have 5,000 words written to it. And hopefully whatever it is that got you stuck will be over, and you'll be moving on to the funner, fresher parts of your story, or sometimes skipping forward in your story. I was struggling. One of the first books I wrote, I was like, well, I don't know how to get them from this point to that point. So then I just started writing them at that point, and then it told me the other scenes I needed to write to get between the two. So there's definitely different like strategies. We're all different personalities here. And some of them, and there's no good personality or bad personality. It's just who you are and how you write and how you can encourage that muse that you have inside of you to come out. And for me, I'm just like, get out, lady. Like, you don't have any options. You have a pre-order and you have 4 more coming after that. You do not have time to be lazy. And that works better for me. I'm like a drill sergeant in my own head. And if that works for you, then force it. And if it doesn't, figure out a way. But I've always said that, like, push yourself a little out of your comfort zone, see if you can continue going. And if you can't, you can always come back and you can always take a couple days off. But if not, you'd be surprised how strong you can be and how much more you can push yourself within reason. Don't push yourself like crazily. But that's just me personally. So if you have a personality like me, then do it this way.
I read a quote that said, don't forget that baby steps move you forward. And, you know, it's kind of that thing that too many people get to these really hard places with writing, and then they step away from it and don't come back again. And those are the ones that don't, you know, follow their dreams to, you know, fruition. So even if you just do little things every day, just thinking about your story, plotting your story, making notes about your story, writing a few words when you can, you know, every little thing is going to move you forward. One of the things I've learned about myself through this process I've gone through with burnout and learning how to enjoy writing again was to give myself permission to have those days when I'm not writing. And to realize that all of my brainstorming, all the time I'm just sitting around thinking about my story and researching different things or thinking about my characters or putting together, you know, story goals and all these different things. Like, those are just as important for me as the actual act of sitting down and writing. So it's okay. It's not, this last book that I wrote is probably the best book I've ever written. And I spent almost a whole month just thinking about it before I ever actually got any writing done with it. And at the time, it felt like a total failure, especially since I was watching a lot of K-drama at the time. But I've come back to realize that everything that I was spending time on was filling me up, and it was giving me inspiration, and it was allowing myself to work out in my mind what I wanted the story to be and do. And so when I actually got to the process of putting words down on paper, it worked better than it would have if I had forced it in January. I have this weird sort of feeling like words happen when they're supposed to happen. When I look at my stories and there's a particularly good part or something that I feel really proud of, I realize that I wrote those words on this particular day in this particular situation after this and this and this happened. And if I had tried to write that chapter another day, that specific arrangement of words wouldn't have happened. Does that make sense? It's kind of this weird thing to play with that I like the idea of seeing what happens when you allow your brain to do its thing and to take inspiration where it can grab it, and, you know, allowing the book to take on its own sort of life. It's interesting. And so I try not to regret too much the days that I didn't write, because I think that they have meaning and purpose too.
Well said. I like that.
It wasn't until I started co-writing that I discovered how much just sitting on your story is so important, because with my co-writing, I read her chapter and then I have to write my chapter after that. And it's almost kind of like, but I haven't thought about it. Like, I haven't worked it out in my mind. And we have a very detailed outline. So I'm more confident going in and just writing it. And I also know my co-writer will go in and she'll add kind of her, you know, sauce to my chapter, and it'll make it a better one. But I'm like, it is so important that you do take that time to think about your story. And even even like, I'm like, I don't even think I spend a ton of time thinking about it. But like those moments that you get, you know, driving somebody or in the shower or cleaning or doing the dishes are very, very important. So make sure that you are including that time for you to think instead of just ignoring your story. Be like, well, I don't have to put any words down, but let me think of the next scene I'm going to write, or let me think of how I'm going to end this, or when is their kiss going to happen for me, or when are they going to discover the deadly disease? And working that out in your mind can actually get you very motivated and excited to write your story.
Yeah, good advice. All right, the next question is Faith would like us to discuss how to balance homeschooling multiple children who need your computer to complete their homework. And then she says, somebody help. And I would just say this whole situation has just happened. We are all just facing this for the first time, a lot of us for the first time together. And this is a brand new thing. So I wouldn't put too much pressure on yourself that you have to figure out how to do this whole thing in the next day. I would take some time and get used to the new normal for right now. This situation will take care of itself eventually. Don't put so much pressure on yourself to write. The other suggestion I have is if your kids need the computer and you have some downtime to write, if it works for you to write in a notebook, that's great. Or you can get an Alpha Smart. They're really, really cheap. Go to eBay, find somebody with an Alpha Smart they're getting rid of, and you can write a whole book in the Alpha Smart and then just plug it into your computer later and download all those words.
Yeah. Or see if your school has resources for you. I know my kids' schools have offered for them to have Chromebooks, which we took a couple of them because I have multiple kids in school and only so many computers at home. So maybe look into that as well.
You can look at, I have Microsoft Word on my phone. It came as part of my 365 subscription or whatever I paid for. So your kid could be on your computer and you could be pounding out words on your phone. There was somebody that spoke at 20 Books a couple of years ago who said he'd written whole novels on his phone that way. So I know people do it.
Or even on Google Docs if you don't have that.
Yeah, true.
And you can get like a Bluetooth or some kind of keyboard.
Yeah.
To make it work a little better.
But one thing I definitely recommend is to pre-write. So many times we sit down to work and stare at that blank screen and agonize forever about what we're doing with that chapter or what we're going to write or, like, what am I doing here? Get all that out of the way while someone else is using your computer and you're doing this or doing that. You can keep that notebook with you and you're not actually writing, the word for word what you want that chapter or scene to be, but you are making notes. Like, I want this to happen. I need this to happen. These characters need to do this. And this is going to be where I want the scene to end. And you just map it out in your mind on notebook, something, so that when you do sit down, you're not wasting time. You're just getting it done because you have everything already prepped and done. And that's a suggestion I've heard about in the 2,000 to 5,000 or 2K to 5K by somebody help me out. We talked about it on our podcast last week.
Rachel,
Rachel, yeah.
That's one of her techniques for being able to get out bigger word counts. The same technique to get out any word count, right? So, and also, like I said, find that place that's for you, even if you have to sacrifice to do it sometimes. And then I also think it's important to let your kids see you working. Like, they're going to be home and they're going to be around you a lot. And I think it's important for them to say, oh, this is what mommy does. This is her job. And see that you're working hard and that you have to spend just as much time doing your work as they have to spend doing theirs. And so when you're telling them, okay, check your spelling or, whatever, that see them, doing or parroting you, and it can be a really good example and reinforce the importance of education and working and editing and all those good things.
So what you're
And
saying
going
is,
after your dreams.
yes, so what
Mommy
you're
has
saying is
dreams too.
you write
Sorry.
and make your kids edit for you. Is that what you're
Hey.
saying? Check my spelling.
Depends on how good your kids are at spelling. I actually have a couple of kids that are better at it than I am, so it would work in my household.
Yeah, it wouldn't work at mine.
I might be the worst speller in my house, except the 5-year-old.
That's funny. All right, our next question is from Gina. She says, how much flexibility should we give ourselves when it comes to daily writing goals? I had been doing so well for a while, but this week just tanked with all the world craziness. I'm thinking of just pushing my goals further out rather than trying to make them up. There's a point where that can just become impossible or really difficult and disheartening. Any other thoughts would be greatly appreciated.
I think her plan so far is a good one to, realize that you might not get the big word counts that you used to do.
That's what I do. If I get far behind, one day I can maybe make up just by splitting it up for a couple of days. Mm-hmm. But if I get more than one day behind, I just push everything back because I am not the kind of person to be super strict on my goals. That's why I hate doing pre-orders. I give myself lots of places of flexibility.
Mm-hmm. That's why my pre-order was set out a full year in advance.
Yeah.
So last year I got myself really good at planning and recording my daily word count and setting up goals and getting things done on schedule and all these sort of things. And I made all these plans and goals for this year. And we had a whole podcast about it. And then January just was crazy. February might as well not have existed except for the fact that I wrote a book in it. But I didn't keep, like my bullet journal, I didn't crack my bullet journal open the whole month. I didn't record. I wrote a 50,000 word novel in February, but I don't have word count tracked for any of the days. I have no idea how many words I wrote on which days. I was like, I'm just surviving here. I'm just getting things done. I don't have time to track or measure or set goals. And I'm a month behind. I know that now, so it's kind of depressing to even think about. So I just stopped. And I actually opened my bullet journal back up in March, and I was like, oh, February just isn't here. And so I'm like, is my planner ruined now? And so I just made a note. I was like,
do anything.
I know. I was like, that's the point of the bullet journal. Stop being obsessive, Michelle. Like, just start. Make it work for you. Do what you need. Like make it be your tool, not like some boss that you have to answer to. So anyway, I think goals are important if they're working for you. And if they're not working for you at the time, don't let them stress you out. And so as I study ADHD, which I have, I've learned that we don't do really well with structure. We definitely don't do well with goals. Goals don't work well for us because we thrive on being spontaneous and being able to act on impulse and being able to try new things and be excited by new ideas. And so like sticking with something that starts to feel like work is the worst thing that I could do for myself. So I'm still trying to figure out what does work. But I would say if goals aren't working for you, then instead of saying, I have to do this, or I'm going to consider myself to be unsuccessful for the day, then at the end of the day, write down the things you did accomplish, even if they're just little things, and celebrate it and say, look how awesome I am. I wrote 50 words today. Those are 50 words that did not exist when I woke up this morning. So that's when just flip it on its head and find a new way to do it that allows you to be positive and excited and proud of yourself.
Yeah, I like that very much because we so often put this tape in our head that plays over and over saying, running through all our failures and all the things we didn't do that we wanted to. And we need to reverse that, like you said, and celebrate the victories, even if I wrote a sentence and it was a dang good sentence. Just be happy about the victories. All right, Stephanie asks, any tips or tricks with working with kids around? Is my productivity doomed until things open again?
I give them screens, so, and then I work during
you go.
screen time. So they have to get all their chores done. They have to get all their homework done, and then they can have their screen time, and I can write. So that's how I make it work. Sometimes they have more screen time than they probably should have, but we are in survival mode sometimes. So
Yeah, don't be too hard on yourself during
and to
these
think that,
times.
but yeah, to think that at the beginning of this month, me and my husband said no screens in March for anyone. Yeah, that went down the drain on Monday.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think-
go ahead, Amy.
I was going to say, I think being forgiving of yourself and writing has to equal to being forgiving of yourself as being a mom. Like, if your kids have to watch 2 movies so you can get words down, it's not going to kill them. Like, it's not. So being forgiving of yourself, I also learned to ignore my kids unless they're bleeding or vomiting or breaking something or there's a fire. I have learned to put blinders on to my kids' screams and being like, you're fine, go solve your problem yourself, you don't need my help, and doing those sorts of things. But I think really just putting your expectations for how you think a mom should be or a parent should be, and giving yourself grace in both things. Because I keep telling my kids, I'm like, it's important for me to write because this is going to make us money so we can then go buy groceries. Like, explaining to your kids that mom's not just sitting on the computer, which sometimes I am sitting on the computer watching Korean dramas, but don't tell anybody that. But telling your kids that this is important and having them feel that importance that mom is working or dad is working or we are working to make money. And then my kids will be like, Mom, go write a book so we can go blah, 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 blah. Like, they get excited and they get encouraging me to go write. So I think being forgiving of yourself, but also getting your kids involved and letting them know what it is that you're doing is helpful.
Yeah, and setting up some kind of reward for them for letting you do it is helpful. Also get them in on it and be like, if
I just tell them, I'm going to buy you toilet paper with this money, which is a hot commodity right now. So you should be grateful.
Yeah.
So I think it's helpful. I'm going to paraphrase Margaret Atwood a little bit from her masterclass, but she says that an author's greatest obstacle or struggle is not, their talent, but distraction. And I think that's what we're all feeling. Is it is really hard to just get into your world and get into the flow when you just have this like ball of chaos, rolling around your house, and you love them and you want to give them what they need, but they're also very vocal about demanding it, and so I think that, like I said already, getting up early before my kids are awake is really survival mode for me right now. But if I do try and work during the day, then it's okay. I am closing my bedroom door. I am lighting a candle. I am putting in earbuds so I can't hear you. If you need something, your father's in the kitchen, or your dad's in the living room for this period of time. And it's, you just try to somehow create a barrier so that you can have the space and quiet you need to sink into your story world. But also make your kids part of the process. If they're there and you're brainstorming, let them be part of the process with you, especially if you have older kids. One of my kids' favorite things is I let them help me pick out names. Like, I need a name for a girl who has this personality, and then my kids are all spitting out names right and left, and they get really offended if I pick the sister's name over what they wanted to say or something like that. So it can be fun. But I let them pick names. I'll talk to my older girls about, okay, if this girl did this, what would your reaction as a reader be? Or would you hate that person? Or, I get them involved in it. And especially since one of my daughters reads all of my books, she really likes to talk to me about it. So it can be something that can help them be invested in it and be part of it. And instead of just, a negative, kids don't have to just be, this struggle we're trying to overcome with their writing. It can actually be a big support and a help. And if we tune our ears, they become fodder for our writing. And, like if you've got a kid in your story, how does your kid act? What do they say? What is, their real emotional response to things? So you don't have these perfect little mannequin kids in your story or something. So there's a lot of ways to incorporate it into your actual writing process.
Perfect. I love those ideas. All right, our last question from our Facebook group. Victoria wants to know, it seems like everyone is jumping on this and using it to sell and promote books to give people something to do, but will your book get lost in the crowd? So I guess she's asking, should we use this to promote our books, or how do you stand out in the crowd?
I did. I did a 99-cent sell. Like, you need something to fill your time, here's a book. So
yeah, I've seen a lot of different authors doing that, and I think it's fine. I think we're all just trying to figure out, for one thing, our business is going to be impacted by this too, right? And so it's perfectly okay to remind people, hey, there's this really good way to have some downtime and relax and enjoy something else. And I'm going to show you that Amazon has 2 months of Kindle Unlimited free right now, and you can read all these amazing books by myself and all these other authors I promote in my newsletter, and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, I've also seen people complaining that people are taking advantage of it, and I think it's just like how you do it, right? And like, are you being obnoxious with it? Are you trying to, are you trying to earn a profit over something that's really causing an impact in people's lives in like a really negative way? Or are you just saying, hey, I'm still operating as a business and I've got this good product that I think will be good for you. So just don't be a jerk about it. There's a way to be, positive and uplifting and, considerate as a business owner in how you respond and market your stuff. So.
And I would say we're living in a point of time where people need distractions. And so selling your books is a great distraction. People can't go to libraries, and, schools are closed. And so there's really, I don't know how many people are going to Barnes and Nobles or how many people are going into thrift stores to buy books. I just don't think that's probably a big thing people are doing.
Well, they're all closing. They're all shutting their doors. Libraries are shutting down everywhere.
Yeah. So I'm just, this is a great way to entertain people. I mean, I'm not doing anything out of the ordinary that I normally do, but I am seeing I think more people are shopping on Amazon, and thank goodness for Amazon. If you go, I think Lucky Charms are sold out on Amazon. You can't buy them. I mean, can you imagine if Amazon wasn't around? And I heard that they're going to hire some 100,000 people to help with this. So this is a moment where I'm really grateful that we have Amazon and we have ebooks and we have all of this set up, that people know, oh, I can't go to the library. Well, I can just go get it on ebook and read it on my phone or on my Kindle. Or the big thing for me, I've seen a huge spike in paperback books for my YA. So I think a lot of parents are on Amazon looking for things for their kids to read and do. And so I'm definitely going to go out there and on my Amazon ads, and I'm going to, now that I'm seeing this as a pattern, I'm going to go out and try and show my book more, because one, I think I wrote a great book, and I think it will help distract kids, and I think it's positive and uplifting, and I think buyers will want to buy it. So I don't really see how people could take advantage of it. I just,
I've seen rumblings where people are complaining about it. I haven't seen an author that I thought was doing that.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder if there are examples out there that other people are seeing where people are just being really obnoxious about it. I think you have to be sensitive, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, there's going to be obnoxious people. One bad apple ruins the barrel or whatever. But don't feel guilty if you want to go out there and try to promote your book more. Because this is what, streaming services are going to see a spike and book sales are going to see a spike. And that's just, we need something to do.
One thing that's interesting is Amazon announced that it is no longer accepting merchandise from its third-party sellers into its warehouses because they just don't have the capacity to keep shipping things out, except for, vital items like medical and life-sustaining type items. And I think that for a little while, we're going to continue to see that Amazon has a much more difficult time fulfilling orders for things. And they are all, if you've looked at shipping times for almost anything you need to get on Amazon, there's not this 2-day delivery going on right now. Everything is just taking so much longer to get out. But ebooks are digital. There's not going to be shipping issues. There's not going to be warehouse. There's not going to be time. And so I think that people, I was trying to order some of my own paperbacks, and it was taking a long time to get books with Prime to my house. I think the closest time I could get my books to my house is like a week and a half on Prime. And so, digital books, I think, are going to become much more, accessible or relevant as people are having a difficult time getting all these other things ordered to their house. So people who haven't really tried ebooks before might consider it now.
And audio. I've seen an increase in audiobook sales.
Yeah. I think especially since I think a lot of families like to listen to books together. Right now, audio will be popular for sure.
But it's taking ACX a lot longer to get an audiobook through the processing.
I've heard that.
And like with the print on demand, I keep waiting for Amazon to be like, and we're going to shut that down. So if you want to buy a book, a hard copy book, now might be the time to do it, because who knows? Because I don't know what the process is, but I'm sure there's a lot of people working in warehouses to get books out.
Well, there are people concerned about possible future shortages of paper. So who knows? We're in the right business with ebooks, but for now, people are still buying paperback too. So hopefully everything hopefully the world gets back on track soon.
That's a good hope.
That's a very good hope. But I know my kids are going back to school until the end of April now for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Pretty crazy. All right. We have one question here for our live questions. I'm going to put it down here. Hey, look, we shrunk you guys so you don't cover up your faces anymore. That's nice. Many writers depend on social interaction for inspiration and to curb burnout, especially social interaction in the community. How can we do this when everybody's locked down? So I say get on our Facebook group, interact with us.
Yeah, we've actually talked about coming on and doing some live videos during the day, some live writing sprints with the community where you can all watch us and join us for some live sprinting. And, so I think we're going to try and do some more events like that will enable us all to kind of get together and see that other people out in the world are on the same place at the same time. We can talk and feel like we're connecting with people. So that will be a lot of fun. But otherwise, I'd also suggest using the connections that you make within your different communities and try and, make a few more attempts to create your own little groups where you can get to know each other better. So like the four of us did, where we were involved in a larger group, and we ended up building a critique group together and building a friendship that has grown into all of this. And we're super close with each other now. And so I think you can all start looking to build those kinds of relationships right now, because I think everybody's really wanting them, to be able to have this kind of face-to-face interaction that we have. And we do that through Google Hangouts and through, I think a lot of people use Zoom, and there's Facebook Messenger videoing, there's FaceTime. Like, use some of those things where you can see people's faces and hear their voices, because it will help you feel like you've really been connecting with an actual person.
Use Marco Polo.
Yeah. Yeah. How amazing it is it that even though we're going through this, we have this ability to stay in contact with each other, which, if this had happened even a decade ago, it would not have been as easy as it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
We wouldn't have had Disney Plus. Then what would we do? Remember back when Netflix was like rent a DVD
Yes.
Yes.
to get you?
Yeah, swim in the mouth.
It was always so stressful. They like, don't lose the Netflix DVD because then we can't get anything else.
Laura was like, I gotta get as many as I can. I'm gonna watch this the soon it gets here, then put it in the mail, get the next one. That's what I did. I had to get my money's worth.
Fast turnaround, yeah.
Fast.
I've been paying $4.95 a month for the same DVD for 6 months now because I can't find it.
I think it's just important to remember that it is important to have social interaction and to be reaching out to other authors, because maybe not for you, but maybe they need it.
Yeah.
And this is the time where as a community, we need to be making sure that we're reaching outside of ourselves and our family and seeing, hey, how are things going? Are you okay? Do you need anything? I mean, maybe it's just a positive word or swap a chapter or something like that. Because we're all feeling the pressure and the annoyance of this virus. And you need, how we were all sad that the Nebraska conference had to get postponed because I thrive on, okay, just one more month and I get to see my friends, just one more month. And now I'm like, I don't know if I'm ever going to see. My sister's like, I might be canceling my trip down. She lives in Canada. She might be canceling her trip in August. I'm like, you're canceling your trip in August, but who knows, especially crossing borders. And she's like, it's not only that, but it's traveler's insurance. It's going to be harder to get traveler's insurance. Yeah. And so it's just all, just try and reach out to people and let them know that you're still there and alive. I keep thinking, I drive outside and I'm like, there's going to be no cars ever at all. Yeah. And then there's like tons of cars in all the parking lots. And so I'm like, okay, apparently everybody's still living their life, but I keep thinking we're all sheltered in our homes and no one's going anywhere. And it's like, I am Legend as he's walking down the street and there's just cars and roots growing up. I think all these apocalyptic movies ruined us because that's what we think is going to happen. So people are still here. We're all still alive. We're all still working. So
yeah. Well, within my own household, my husband he's not necessarily an extrovert, but he really, really likes to get out and get out of the house. So it's been difficult, but anytime there's something that we have to do, he's like, I'll volunteer. Like, let me go do it. And I'm like, I'm fine staying in the house. But I realized that today especially, I realized I need my quiet alone time and I am not getting it. And I'm okay right now, but I can't go much longer without some quiet alone time. So I'm going to be doing a lot more like escaping out into the backyard by myself for just a little while, trying to find and just talking to my family. Like, I need some quiet. I need quiet and alone for just a little while, and get out and take walks or go on hikes or, do something in the fresh air and sunshine with your kids. And
if you have fresh air and sunshine, it was raining and 32 today.
Oh.
I'm just grateful that it's not the polar vortex
here today
last year, and it's not snowing. But I have a feeling it probably will.
Well, it was warm here. My kids were in shorts and swimsuits outside playing in mud puddles today. So it was raining, but we were still outside because it was warm. Thank goodness. But of course, there are also tornadoes starting to happen down here in the south. Yeah. But anyways, take care of yourselves. Yeah. Figure out what you need, what keeps you healthy and happy, and make sure you're doing it.
Good thoughts. All right, guys, that's our show. Thank you for staying with us and staying up late with us and watching us. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and hit subscribe. And we will see you again in a couple of weeks.
Or sooner on our Facebook group.
Yes, and we're hoping to do some live events on our Facebook group. So stay tuned there for that. And we'll see you again.